that. And that's enormously important because there are going to be issues that we can't contemplate or only can be dimly perceived right now that will emerge in the next 4 years. And we need to have confidence in the character of the man, that no matter what, that his big focus and his only North Star will be what's good for the country. It's not my particular ego that's at stake. It's not like, well, I'm too much bothered in trying to run the world to worry about the local economy because I'm worrying about Tibet or Nepal or Yemen or something like that. He wants to defend the United States, safety and the economy, but in the United States. And that's why I think he should be a hands-down pick. And remember, this idea that Ron Paul, he doesn't have a foreign policy, it's weak, is absurd. If there's one person who's the most hawkish on defending Americans as opposed to defending Afghans or defending Iraqis or Yemenis, it is Ron Paul, because he wants our defense resources devoted to protecting us.
And he was also in the Air Force.
Protecting everybody under the sun.
Let me expand on that. Netanyahu kicked out the last head of Mossad because he didn't want to strike Iran. And the former head of Mossad was in Haaretz the other day saying it'll be a catastrophe if they strike them right now. Iran's already threatened to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They've shot down a drone. All of this is accelerating. But Obama wants the political distraction. Netanyahu may want it. And then Ron Paul got banned from this latest debate, and the group said, well, because you're not realistic on Iran, when I've seen polls of the majority of Israelis don't want to do this. And I know you're advising him on legal things in the Constitution, but where is a preemptive strike with the U.S. backing it in the Constitution on Iran? And then when you actually look at what Ron Paul actually says, it's the researched view of the big think tanks, of the CIA. Ron Paul's the only one actually living in reality geopolitically.
That is absolutely right. There's nothing in the Constitution that authorizes preemptive war, or Don Rumsfeld called them anticipatory self-defense. A defense means you defend yourself against an attack. Not that you initiate an attack, you defend against an attack, and that's what the Constitution says in the preamble or otherwise. And moreover, Ron Paul's position is the sensible position. And let's scope out what the other side says. First, they say, well, Iran is so crazy. Even if you attempt to deter them by promising nuclear incineration if they attack us, they crave self-destruction. Well, that's insane. What did the Iranians do? Even with the Ayatollahs and the mullahs, they negotiated the release of our hostages finally from Tehran. They brought a conclusion to the Iraqi-Iran war brought by Saddam Hussein. Remember, we shot down an airliner, a civilian airliner, the USS Vincennes over the Persian Gulf. We killed over 200. They negotiated that, so we paid them money. They didn't go to war. They're like any other country. The idea that somehow Iran displays more, irrationality than North Korea and we can't deter them with our nuclear arms is ridiculous. Moreover, let's understand, why does Iran cling to nuclear arms? Largely because we have had a policy championed and initiated by Newt Gingrich of overthrowing the government by force and violence. They remember our overthrow of Mossadegh, the only democratically elected official in this, in the last centuries in Iran. We overthrew him to get the Shah of Iran in.
Bruce, it's worse than that, as you know. It's now admitted that since Bush 5 years ago and currently, England, Israel, and the U.S. have been running covert operations. Here's France 24. U.S.-Israel covert war against Iran suspected. It's not suspected when giant bases are blowing up.
And scientists are assassinated. Yeah, they're exactly right. We know that. So, when a country is confronting an adversary who says we're going to overthrow your regime, they're ordinarily likely to look at self-defense, and they see what happened to Gaddafi in Libya. Gaddafi wasn't attacking the United States. We just got up and said, hey, let's throw that guy out. So we are creating the environment that creates the incentive for them to.
Let me ask you this question.
And this is one point I'd like to make, Alice, just to finish this out. The only issue in which all Iranians agree, including those who despise the mullahs, is they want and need a nuclear armament now because of the United States. We are unifying the Iranians. And the fact is, other countries, when they have reached a level of security, have abandoned nuclear weapons. It's not like once you get them, you never give them up. South Africa had them at one time. They got rid of them. Belarus had them. They got rid of them. Kazakhstan got rid of them. Ukraine had them at one time. Got rid of them. So listen, I don't champion proliferation. But the fact is, if you have a regime that's not threatened, you could probably develop the internal consensus to get rid of them. Because basically, they're ordinary wars. All the nuclear weapons we had didn't win in Vietnam. All the nuclear weapons that Israel had nothing to do with the Yom Kippur War. And so we have the ability, by not threatening to overthrow regimes, to create a climate where they won't have any incentive to create.
Bruce, I thought we only had you for 20, but I've learned the producer we have you for about 10 more in the next segment, so now I'll have time to get to my questions. But we're about to go to break. I want to pose the questions to you now, and we'll come back. What, then, is the real strategy of the Fortune 100 and the big mega banks manipulating our government, Israel and Europe, England? What do they want out of this destabilization? Why would they want to put the Muslim Brotherhood in all over the Middle East? Why would they want to put al-Qaeda in Libya when Gaddafi been playing ball for 7 years and taking total, Western investment? Why? Why do they want so much destabilization? Why don't they want to just be friends with everybody like Ron Paul has said? Bruce Fein, constitutional lawyer, Ron Paul advisor, straight ahead. American empire before the fall, and a large portion of the proceeds goes to the campaign for liberty. And see, these global interests, they're just working the levers of the American empire that we paid for. And we don't get anything. It'd be one thing if it was like the British Empire 200 years ago, where if you were an Englishman and served it, sometimes you could actually get something out of serving the empire. On average here, this is not the case. And I'm not endorsing an evil empire where you actually get some of the loot. I'm just saying in this one, you pay for it in blood, treasure, your name. America now is this example worldwide where dictators and thugs and oligarchs endorse their torture, their secret arrest off of what we're doing. The Egyptian police have named themselves Homeland Security when they rubber bullet people and arrest them now and torture them. I mean, this is an amazing transformation we've seen. Bruce Fein's our guest. So Bruce, you heard my question. What is the thinking of the global elite? Because they're debasing Europe, they're debasing America, they're debasing England, they're debasing Israel, they're debasing Australia. They're wrecking all of their own power sectors, whereas in the past we had some, corrupt leaders sometimes, but they still understood the basic idea of not wrecking your own command base. So I guess we're seeing the Nero or Caligula type hubris, the insanity. What's your view on why they're doing this and what the end game is? Why put al-Qaeda in charge of Libya?
Well, I think that there are two driving motivations here, one for politicians and one for what you call the military terrorism complex. But I think, Alex, we need to understand that empires are not smart, that even if they think what they're doing is good for them in the long run, they destroy themselves. That is, they can be very, very stupid and foolish. Indeed, that's what caused Mr. Gibbon to sit at the corner of the dilapidated Roman Colosseum and to ask why was it dilapidated after it had such a brilliant, obelisk status and iconic status for so many centuries. So we can't believe that just because they're doing it, there's any wisdom behind it. But now we can get to the short-term motives. I think that politically the reason for this drive for empire and intervention and meddling everywhere is this kind of thrill. It's sort of an animalistic thrill of domination for the sake of domination. It was captured in Julius Caesar. I came, I saw, I conquered. And so presidents get in and they say, well, gee, I don't want to worry about minimum wage. I want to conquer the world. That's what the presidency is about. Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, what the hell is it? Have the greatest army and navy and air force and marines in the world and not use them. We got to use them. And there is this sense of, okay, this is my identity of just acting like a bully on the playground. It gives them thrill if you're an adolescent, and that's why it's not just in the places you talked, Afghanistan, Iraq. I mean, nothing happens in the world. Burundi, we want to interfere in Burundi or the Central African Republic or Nepal. Anything, we have a foreign policy position on it, saying, we're interested in what happens in mankind, but we just need to be worried about America making it as perfect as we can, and our example can have influence, but otherwise other people got to take care of themselves. But this idea of meddling everywhere, wanting to play all roles, it reminds me of Nicholas Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream, where he wants to play all the parts in the play. That's what and sort of a sense of grandeur by doing that. And then the military terrorism complex, it does it because of the money. I mean, just staggering sums out there. How many of the audience know that this very day we are spending $350 million in Afghanistan alone? In Afghanistan alone.
Or look at the billions. Look at the billions for the naked body scanners.
Yeah.
And the insider trading right there of Chertoff putting the order in and then going to the company to actually profit from what he did. And then Congress gets caught insider trading and says we're just allowed to do this. It's staggering how they flaunt it in our face. So let me ask you this question then. Looking historically out there, you mentioned the megalomania, the arrogance of Newt Gingrich. Studying these politicians, they really enjoy going to the parties, getting the awards. A normal person just wants to sit at home and read a book by the fire.
Right.
And so that's why we're kind of blind to them. And I agree with you. Ron Paul's the only person who truly is dedicated, has a grasp on history. The rest are a bunch of fawning sycophants that have sold out 1,000 times 1,000, and that's why they're where they're at. How do we beat these people? We do see liberty rising. Freedom is popular. How do you see these two opposing forces coming together? What's your prognosis on the future?
I don't think the future is determinate. In some sense, Emerson was right. History is biography. History, what's you, me, and what our audience does. And we basically are at the bottom of Mount Everest in this progress to try to recapture liberty as the center of our constitutional universe with Ron Paul. Certainly, I believe there's optimism because Ron Paul's ideas, although they're still attempted to be shunned by much of the media, got into the mainstream, at least with regard to the absurd billions, trillions lent by the Federal Reserve, and some people are more hesitant about these endless wars. But they're not the majority, at least at present. But you don't need a majority necessarily to prevail. It's the intensity factor, Alex. Andrew Jackson once said a majority is one man or woman with courage. And what we need to have that resolution that we're going to go out, we're going to argue, we're going to write, we're going to vote, we're going to protest. We may lose, but we're not going to give up. And it may well be that Ron doesn't win this time around. Although I have a healthy optimism that he's going to win Iowa because of the dedication of his people. But the critical thing to understand is politics never has an end point. There's never going to be one victory where you get across the touchdown line and then you can slacken off, because human nature is inevitably going to gravitate towards the lowest common denominator. It needs thrill, it needs leadership, it needs the influence of example by the like of Ron Paul and George Washington. So we've got to understand that our quest is never ending. Every generation is going to have to win it for itself and keep it for itself, because the natural course of mankind is tyranny, whether it's tyranny by one or tyranny by the majority. It takes a very, very educated and committed, a kind of society to celebrate liberty and take some risks. And that is what we have to recognize we're about. Not just our generation. We have to pass on to our successors this intensity factor, this commitment to know it's never going to end at the end of a particular election. And whether we win or lose, it is the ideas, and this is what Ron knows more than anyone else, certainly of all of his rivals, the ideas that is going to lead us as to how we spend our time each day, protecting liberty, shunning big brother government, and craving the kind of independence that gives us a self-fulfillment and pride of being a human being that responds to the adult commands of virtue, wisdom, and magnanimity.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's Bruce Fein without a teleprompter, Ron Paul without a teleprompter, Alex Jones without one. We have researched. We are passionate about freedom. We don't need teleprompters. And so many people are sold on the idea that being involved is boring or a chore. But I'm here to tell you, 17 years into the fight, ladies and gentlemen, or more now, that as Thomas Jefferson said, it is the animating contest of liberty. It is animating. It is exciting to be informed. It's exciting to study history and politics and law. And as you learn more, it starts connecting, and you learn more and more, and you realize how much you don't know. And then you accelerate your learning, and then you become humble in time and space. You realize it's about the human species. It's about the journey. It's about empowerment. It's about destiny. And then you look at those who don't even want to know about history, or those who don't admire humanity's great deeds. Then you feel sorry for them. And I think in the final equation, that's the crossroads we're at right now. Bruce, final comments on that, and then tell us about your new book.